I'm doing George S. Kaufman and Moss Hart for my author inquiry um, research project. And what I'm really interested in right now, and what I'm really searching for, is how the historical context of the 1930s, that Great Depression era, is influencing the authors and how that then is influencing their work. I'm right now only focusing on You Can't Take It With You, partly because it was the text we read in class, but also because it was a play that I have performed in before. A few of the books that I have chosen from the library that I'm getting a lot of my research from. I have two biographies, one on George S. Kaufman and one on Moss Hart. Um, this one has been a little difficult to get through just because it's such an idealized version of Moss Hart that there really is nothing to ever be said poorly of him, despite some of the information not being the best. So I don't know how reliable of a text I want to take this, but it is giving me a good idea of the kind of person that Moss Hart was thought to be, and how a lot of people were somewhat inspired by him in that. George S. Kaufman's biography is a lot more neutral. It talks about all aspects of his personality and how that affected his work. Um, and then the third text I have is The American Stage in the Great Depression, which I've found the most useful and kind of the most inspiring in my research because it's given me a few different pathways to run down. For example, it's taken me to the idea of like the grotesque and the grotesque in comedy, and how the difference in comedic grotesque and horror grotesque um, honestly kind of come together in that depression era, as it's like a state of emergency for a lot of people, yet also a time for laughter. And that like paradigm is kind of mind-blowing but also really fascinating to me at the same time. um, and in that grotesque, at the other end of the spectrum, we have an idea of sentimentalism that this book also brought up. And so, looking at that idea of sentimentalism, um, I kind of separated the two by looking at the two authors. We have the idea of the grotesque of George S. Kaufman and the idea of the sentimentalist in Moss Hart. And that is kind of influenced by some of the reading I've done in Moss Hart's biography because of the way and funny, um, really down to earth, cool, someone you want to hang out with. And then George S. Kaufman is kind of like a grimier, confrontational kind of I'm gonna do things my own way and live life on my own type of guy, which honestly kind of really wasn't him. But those two publicized, idealized versions of the two come together to find that weird balance between the grotesque and the sentimental. Um, the other aspect of this book that I have found absolutely fascinating in relation to comedy is the idea of the middle town. The middle town was an experiment done on Muncie, Indiana by husband and wife sociology team. And they kind of just took a group of ordinary people, primarily white, primarily Republican, um, and just tried to see like what would happen in their own like ordinary bubble, not influenced by a ton of other outside sources. Well, it turned out that there was this weird like kind of frozen in the middle aspect of being like stuck wanting to be nostalgic about the past but also like really hopeful about the future and have that having like really futuristic mindset. um the other part of that is was also like looking at the past tensions of religion, but then also the new advancements of technology and science and how those two relate and come into tension with each other. Not to mention the political tension that's happening at the time, the communism, the Red Scare, um, Hitler and the Nazis, Russia, and how like all those different shifts in leadership are impacting the people in the United States, um, and how it just provided this really weird um, middle mindset, middle town of this community, how they couldn't go forward and they couldn't go back. They were just kind of stuck there. Yeah, so kind of long story short, those are the main aspects that I am looking toward on my research. Um, yeah, the grotesque sentimentalism, considering that idea of Middletown and how the political concerns of the time all come together to impact the lives of the authors, which then impact how the work is being put across through kind of a tragic comedy sense. Yeah, so that's all I have for now, and I'm excited to pursue all